Hey everyone, this is Karenology. You won't believe the insane drama that just unfolded. Let's get into it. It was the kind of morning that lied to you. Bright sky, soft wind, birds chirping like nothing in the world could go wrong. I had just gotten back from a 3-day run into town, stocked up on siding boards, nails, a few tins of coffee, and my weekly indulgence. Canned peaches. Pulled off the county road, turned down the gravel fork that led to my cabin. And that's when I saw it. Metal. Bright and arrogant. A new steel gate welded onto 2 oak posts I hadn't seen before. A heavy chain ran across it, latched tight with a padlock, thick enough to hang an engine from, and bolted to the front of it all. A pristine sign, glinting in the sun. Private property of Whispering Pines. Homeowner Association. No access without prior written approval. I didn't move at first. My engine idled. Soft ticks popping under the hood as the heat dissipated. I felt that old throb in my temples. Not from the road, but from something deeper. Something that always flared when you realized the world had shifted while you weren't looking. Then she stepped out from behind a white SUV parked to the side like she owned the damn trees. "Oh, you're back," she said, all smiles that didn't reach her eyes. Karen. Real name Darlene Haskins, but she'd earned the other one a dozen times over. Floral blouse, big sunglasses, holding a clipboard like it was a badge. You put this here?" I asked, voice flat. She tilted her head. "It's not personal, Mr. Talbot. The board voted. There have been complaints. We had to take action to protect the community." What community?" "My cabin's 3 miles from the closest front porch." She gave that condescending chuckle. "Still counts. The road passes through association land. We checked the parcel maps. Technically, we have jurisdiction." I didn't argue. Not because I agreed, but because something about the way she looked at me made me realize this wasn't about jurisdiction. This was about leverage. "You can't do this," I said. "We already did." I stepped out of my truck and walked up to the gate. Gave the chain a yank. Solid. Tried to lift it. Nothing. Behind me, Karen cleared her throat. "Any attempt to bypass that lock will be considered trespassing. We've notified the sheriff." I looked back at her. "You think I'm scared of the sheriff?" "No," she said, smile widening. "I think you're smart enough to know when you've lost." She got back in her SUV, tires crunching the gravel as she pulled away. I stood there for a long time, listening to the wind and the birds and the ticking of my truck's engine, and something else, low and old and rising from the gut, that sense I hadn't felt in years. Not since the day I buried my wife. The feeling that I was being erased, 1 quiet inch at a time. Later that afternoon, I parked on the county road and hiked the 3 miles in, cutting through brush and creek beds until I reached my cabin. Everything looked untouched. The siding I'd started half done, tools locked up tight. I sat on the porch and opened a can of peaches. Syrup sweet, too sweet. I didn't taste it. That night, I slept inside for the first time in weeks. The wind howled like something wild was circling the cabin. I left the lantern on, hand near the shotgun, just in case. Morning came, and with it the first real blow. The county clerk called me back. Said the Homeowner Association had submitted a petition months ago claiming maintenance responsibility for the road, citing safety concerns and unauthorized use by non-members. The clerk sounded apologetic, said it looked like the paperwork had gone through. Road was now considered private by maintenance access, meaning I was cut off. I didn't slam the phone down. I just sat there, feeling the wood grain under my palm like it was the only thing still real. Midday, I saw a truck slow down on the other side of the gate. Jerry, my old neighbor, used to bring me pie on Sundays. He saw me standing 50 feet away and looked straight ahead, pretending not to. By dusk, I knew what this was. Not a mistake. Not a misunderstanding. This was a siege, and I was the target. I slept in the cabin again that night, this time with the shotgun beside me. I woke to silence, the kind of silence that makes your teeth itch. Stepped outside and froze. Someone had broken the window, left the front door hanging open. Inside, the place was trashed. Papers everywhere. Coffee spilled across the floor. And on the wall, written in something red and runny, "Remove yourself." Part of me wanted to laugh. Another part wanted to cry. Neither came out. I just stood there. Still. So damn still. You know that moment when you realize no one's coming to help? That was mine. I sat on the porch all morning, watching the same stretch of woods like it might move. Like the trees might lean in and whisper some kind of plan. But the woods just stood there, ancient and indifferent. The syrupy message on my wall had started to flake by noon, turning brown, like dried blood. I didn't clean it. Not out of fear. Out of principle. Let it rot there. A monument to their cowardice. The trail back to the county road was 4 miles if you didn't count the bramble and the incline. I counted every damn inch of it that day. Hiked out under the sun, sweat soaking through my shirt. Ribs aching from a fall I took near the ridge. When I finally got to my truck, parked under that stupid cottonwood tree, it felt like crawling back from war. I tried the sheriff again. Busy. Left a message. Then I called the county office, demanding to speak with someone above the clerk. After an hour of transfers and empty apologies, I got someone from land use. She sounded young, didn't know the file. Promised to flag the issue for review. You ever hear a phrase so limp it makes your bones hurt? I drove into town, parked outside the diner, and walked in like I still belonged. The bell above the door jingled the same way it always had, but the eyes that turned toward me were new, tight, curious in the worst way. I ordered black coffee and sat at the bar. Nobody said a word. Then Jerry came in. He walked straight past me like I was invisible. Sat 2 stools down, ordered meatloaf. I turned to him. You knew. He stirred his tea. Didn't look up. It wasn't personal. I stared at him. You let them lock me out. You knew what they were doing, so... He finally looked up. Old face, sagging under the weight of years, but the eyes were clear. Cold. Karen said it was a liability. Said the road needed to be maintained. That your cabin was built without proper inspections. That cabin's been standing since before most of them moved in. Doesn't matter, he said. Paperwork does. He paid and left. Left me sitting there with a cold cup of coffee and a rage I hadn't felt since Iraq. By the time I got back to the gate, it was nearly dark. A new sign had been added to the post. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Cameras in use. I didn't go around. Not that night. I sat in the truck and watched the stars come out, one by one. The gate stood between me and the place I'd bled into for a decade. A place I built with my hands after I lost everything else. I slept in the truck that night. The next morning, I hiked in again. Body sore, spirit worse. But the cabin was still standing, even with the busted door and the smell of mildew. I cleaned what I could, boarded the window, set traps around the perimeter. No more surprises. Then came the girl. Midday, as I was fixing the side panel, a voice called out from the edge of the trees. "You Talbot?" I turned. She was young. Late 20s, maybe. Tan skin, boots worn from real use, a binder in one hand and a dog leash in the other. The dog was a mutt. Alert. Who wants to know? Name's Sydney. I'm a legal intern. My aunt owns property up north. Told me about your situation. Not sure I have one. Situation, I mean. She smiled. Sharp. That gate says otherwise. I didn't trust her. Not yet. But she asked smart questions. Took photos. Said she could look into land records. Maybe find an angle. Offered to file a petition on my behalf. I told her I didn't have the money for lawyers. "I don't need money," she said. "Just need someone to stand." I wanted to believe her. God help me. I wanted to believe someone still gave a damn. We spent the rest of the day going over old documents I kept in a lockbox under the floorboards. Original deeds, maps, surveyor notes. She looked like she knew what she was doing. She even pointed out something I hadn't noticed before. A survey discrepancy between the road easement and the plotted boundary lines. Thought they might have overstepped, she said. Could be grounds for reversal. But we need leverage. What kind? She hesitated. Power. Political, legal, or public. Right now, you have none. She left just before dusk, said she'd be back, gave me her card, handwritten, not even laminated. That night, I didn't sleep much. Kept hearing twigs snap where they shouldn't. The traps stayed quiet, but my gut didn't. Something had shifted, and not just with her arrival. I wasn't sure if I had a new ally or just another mask. But I knew one thing. The fight had begun. 3 days passed, and Sydney didn't come back. I kept busy. Repaired the window, reinforced the door, sharpened the perimeter traps just in case. The woods had that feeling again, like something was watching. Nothing I could see, but enough to make me check over my shoulder twice for every once. By the 4th morning, I hiked out early. Took the long way through the ridge trail that curved around Whispering Pines. From there, I could see their neat rows of houses, perfect lawns, color-coded mailboxes. All that order hiding something rotten. Karen's white SUV was parked at the end of a cul-de-sac. A man in slacks and a security vest stood at the mouth of the trail, arms crossed. They were guarding the gate now. Back in town, I stopped by the hardware store. Needed kerosene, nails, a replacement blade for the saw. Clerk gave me a look like he was trying to remember if I owed him something. I paid in cash and left. At the diner, the waitress didn't speak to me. Neither did Jerry, who sat in the far booth, pretending to read a newspaper upside down. Everyone had picked a side. I just wasn't sure they realized which one. That evening, just before dusk, Sydney returned. She looked tired. Dirt on her jeans, a rip on her jacket sleeve. You weren't kidding about the hike," she said, brushing hair from her eyes. I poured her a cup of coffee. She took it with both hands like it meant something. We sat on the porch as the sun dipped and the cicadas started up. "I found something," she said, "and it's bad. Except, for them or for me." She hesitated. "Both." She pulled a folded document from her bag and laid it across my lap. A copy of a registered easement transfer. Dated 7 years ago, the Homeowner Association had quietly lobbied to have the road redesignated as a private access route for emergency response and utility control. They used a provision that bypassed public review if the usage fell under safety infrastructure. They buried it in a stack of budget approvals. Nobody caught it, so it's legal. Actually, yes, but barely. They still need a physical servitude contract to block landlocked owners. That's you. And you never signed one. I stared at the paper. Ink can be more dangerous than dynamite. So they're bluffing. No. They're exploiting a loophole and hoping you don't fight it. I looked at her. "Why are you really helping me?" She held my gaze. Because my aunt had land taken the same way. They made her feel crazy, alone, like she didn't matter. She died before we could win. I guess I'm not done fighting yet. For the first time in days, something settled in my chest that wasn't rage or sorrow. Hope. She stayed late. We went over more documents. Old tax records, utility maps, even topographical surveys from the 90s. Found another oddity. A misalignment between what the county thought was road and what the land truly held. In short, the Homeowner Association was fencing off more than they had rights to. She smiled for the first time. "This is leverage. If we play it right." That night, I walked her halfway back through the woods. Flashlight bouncing off cedar trunks. When we reached the ridge, she stopped. "One more thing. I filed an intent notice under your name. It gives you provisional standing to challenge the easement. You'll probably get a letter soon. From them, from the county, maybe even their lawyer. Be ready." She disappeared into the dark. I stood there for a while, staring at the soft glow of whispering pines far below. They looked like Christmas lights from up here. Pretty. Harmless. Like a lie wrapped in tinsel. When I got back to the cabin, the front door was open. Again, I rushed in. Nothing stolen this time. But something was different. The shotgun I kept under the cot was moved. Not taken, just moved. They wanted me to know they'd been there. Next morning, I left a note nailed to the gate. "I'm not going anywhere." I never expected a reply, but by afternoon, one showed up. Spray painted across my cabin's front wall. We'll see about that. The war wasn't coming. It had already started. The paint was still wet when I touched it. Red. Same color they used the first time. But this wasn't just a message. This was a promise. A declaration. They weren't trying to scare me off anymore. They were telling me it was too late. I stood in front of that wall for a long time, listening to the breeze slip between the pines. Then I turned and walked inside. Bolted the door. Sat down. Waited. Nothing happened. But silence is its own kind of violence. It wraps around your bones, keeps you from sleeping, makes every floorboard creak sound like a footstep you missed. The letter came 2 days later, certified. Hand-delivered by a courier who didn't meet my eyes. Folded tight and sealed like a threat. It was from the Homeowner Association's lawyer. Civil notice. Legalese thick as tar. But the gist was clear. If I attempted to access the road without written permission, I could face criminal trespassing charges and civil penalties. Funny thing is, they never addressed me as a landowner, just as an occupant. I burned the letter in the stove, watched it crumple and vanish into smoke. Sydney didn't show that day, or the next. I spent the time clearing brush along the southern ridge, trying to see if the old firebreak trail still ran through. It didn't. Washouts had turned it into a trench, useless for anything but snakes and runoff. By nightfall, I was sore, dirty, and mad, in a way I hadn't been since I buried Ruth. Then I heard the engine, soft at first, then louder, tires crunching gravel. I stepped out just in time to see a black truck speed off from the gate, dust cloud behind it. On the gate, hanging from the chain, was something new, a dead raccoon. Wire wrapped around its legs, head twisted too clean to be a coyote. Below it, stapled to the post, a typed note. Go back to town. Final warning. I buried the animal. Quietly. Carefully. Like it mattered. The next morning, I drove into town. Parked outside the county recorder's office. Walked in like I had every right to be there. Because I did. The clerk was new. Young. Nervous. She asked if I had an appointment. I have land, I said. And I have time. One of those matters more than the other. She brought out the parcel books. I combed through them for hours, tracing survey lines, easement records, property transfers, and then I found it, a plat map from 1994. It showed the original boundaries before the Homeowner Association was ever formed. The road they were calling private? It had been marked as shared access utility corridor for 2 adjacent lots, one of which was mine. No transfer, no reclassification, just gone from the later records, erased. I took photos, printed copies, made notes. As I walked back to the truck, I saw Jerry across the street. He stood by his mailbox, smoking. Watched me like a man who knew a secret and hated that you might have found it too. He didn't wave. Neither did I. Back at the cabin, I spread the maps across the table. Measured, compared, marked in red. Every inch they'd stolen. Every lie they'd cemented with paperwork and polish. Sydney returned that night, looked thinner, worn. You all right? I asked. She shook her head. I shouldn't have filed that intent notice. It spooked them. Now they're pushing hard. My aunt's property just got a citation for overgrowth near public land. That's never happened before. They're retaliating. They're testing how far they can go. I handed her the old map. Her eyes lit up. This changes everything, she whispered. If this holds up, if the original easement was never properly rescinded, then they've been lying to the county. They've been lying to everyone. We stayed up late building a timeline, map overlays, parcel histories. If this were a war, these were our schematics. At some point past midnight, she said, "We need to bring this to someone. A third party, someone neutral." I looked at her, hard. No journalists, no noise, not yet. If they feel cornered, they'll burn the whole damn forest. She nodded. Okay, no press, but we need a way to hold the line. Legally. Strategically. That's when I remembered something. A contract I signed back in the early 2000s. A surveyor's access permit for a trail that cut through the backside of the HOA's land. It had never been used, never revoked. If we can prove that trail still exists on record, she leaned in. Then you might have a legal ingress that bypasses the main road, a backdoor. We looked at each other. The game had changed. That night, I dreamed of Ruth. She stood on the porch, in her old flannel robe, mug of tea in hand, looking out at the trees. They're just people, Will, she said. Scared little people. And scared people make dumb decisions. I woke up cold, the echo of her voice still in my ears. They weren't gods, just scared little people with too much paper and too little soul. And I'd beaten worse. Next morning, Sydney and I drove into the county archives. Not the bright front office with smiling clerks, but the storage annex 2 miles down a service road, where records go to gather dust and wait to be forgotten. We signed in, were handed gloves, and directed to a room with boxes stacked like gravestones. 3 hours in, we found it. A brittle manila folder with rusted staples and fading ink. The original surveyor permit, signed in 2002 by the Department of Land Management, allowing access through a utility trail that skirted the HOA's southern boundary. Not revoked, not superseded. Still legally standing. It was the kind of paper people forget exists until it burns their plans to the ground. Sydney looked at me like we'd just found buried treasure. I says, if this is real and it looks real, then we can file a reactivation request. How long does that take? Depends. Could be days. Could be hours if we find the right desk. Then let's find it. Back in town, we stopped at the county engineer's office. While she argued with a gatekeeper behind frosted glass, I waited outside in the truck, sipping burnt diner coffee and watching shadows shift across the parking lot. I don't know what I expected. Applause? A cavalry? But when she came back out, it was with a smirk I hadn't seen before. They signed it, interim authorization. You can use the trail for ingress temporarily. And the HOA? They'll get the notice tomorrow. That night, we hiked the old trail together. Thick with vines and fallen limbs. Barely passable in places. But it was there, and it was real. At the far end, it opened onto the county road, well beyond the HOA's chained gate. I could come and go again. Not because they let me, because I'd remembered something they tried to erase. For the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. The next morning, my phone buzzed. No name, just a number. I picked up. Mr. Talbot, this is Evan Sharp, legal counsel for Whispering Pines Homeowner Association. I'd like to request a meeting. No. Please reconsider. It's in everyone's interest to resolve this amicably. You threatened me. You vandalized my home. You left a dead animal chained to my gate. We're well past amicable. Silence on the line. Then, I think we both know that if you continue down this path, things will escalate. Let them. I've been escalated before. Click. Later that day, I drove into town via the new route. Parked at the supply store like I had a year ago, before all this started. Got shingles. More nails. Rope. Paint. When I stepped out, Karen was standing by the vending machine. White blouse, clipboard, smirk. Ollie, looks like you found your little loophole, she said. Not a loophole, just law. Something you should try reading sometime. She took a step closer. Too close. You think this is over? You think you won because you found some dusty old permit? I looked her dead in the eye. No, but I think you're starting to sweat. And that's a good sign. That night, they cut the rope bridge. Sydney had gone home. I was alone. I heard the snap around midnight. Sharp and sudden. Ran to the back trail with a lantern, heart pounding. The bridge was gone. Ropes sliced clean. Planks scattered downstream. They didn't just want to block me. They wanted to trap me. I spent the rest of the night rebuilding what I could, reinforcing the trail, marking new flags along the edge. Didn't sleep, couldn't. At sunrise, I found a printout nailed to a tree near the trailhead. An aerial photo of my cabin, circled in red. Below it, "Next time, it won't be a raccoon." I took the photo, folded it slow. They weren't hiding anymore. They were hunting. The photo stayed in my pocket all day. A little heavier than paper should be. I kept touching it like it might burn me. Every few hours, I'd unfold it again, just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. That red circle, the cabin like a bullseye, and those 5 words below, simple and final. Not a warning. A declaration. Sydney didn't answer her phone that day. No calls, no texts. I left a message, voice calm, clipped. Didn't want her to hear the panic. Didn't want her to know how bad it was getting. Not yet. Instead, I got to work. First, I rigged a makeshift alarm system along the trail. Tripwires connected to old coffee cans filled with nails and bolts. Wouldn't stop anyone, but it'd wake the dead. Then I buried a steel box near the fire pit. Inside, flash drive, legal docs, the old surveyor permit, and a letter. Just in case. Then I hiked to the ridge, sat under the twisted oak Ruth used to love, looked down at whispering pines. Peaceful, quiet, lie. They'd built their kingdom on my silence, my retreat. But I wasn't retreating anymore. I watched for an hour before I saw it. A utility truck, city, logos, orange vests, parked right near the old fence line. 3 men walked the perimeter, pointing, measuring, and one of them was Jerry. I hiked back hard and fast. By the time I reached the cabin, adrenaline was chewing through my ribs. I tore open the file Sydney left behind, dug through the parcel overlays. There it was. The HOA was trying to reclassify the buffer zone as a municipal utility corridor. If they pulled it off, they could not only cut my access again, but have cause to seize the land under eminent domain. It was a land grab, clean and legal and cold. That night, I finally reached Sydney. Her voice was tight. "I've been getting threats, too," she said. "My tires were slashed yesterday. They sent my aunt a letter about back taxes from 1996. This isn't just about you anymore. You in or out?" Long pause. I'm in. But we need to flip the board. Not legally, strategically. How? Pressure. HOA members don't care about you, but they care about their property values. We hit the one place they feel it. Fear. "I'm listening." She explained a plan. Not a lawsuit, not a protest, a message. Something undeniable, something visual. You ever heard of reverse mapping? I can't say I have. You will. Next morning, Sydney arrived with a drone and a laptop. We launched it from the ridge. Within minutes, it painted a digital scan of the land. Overlaid with historic maps and current satellite data, it told one simple truth. They were fencing off land they didn't own. Documented, measured, time-stamped. "We don't send this to the county," she said. "We send it to the title insurers, the realtors, the developers, anyone with a stake. And the homeowners? We make them see what they paid for and what might get revoked." That afternoon, we printed 50 copies of the overlay, each with a QR code linking to a private web page with video proof, maps, and voiceover. I walked house to house that night. stayed out of sight, put them in mailboxes, under windshield wipers. No notes, no threats, just the truth. By sunrise, the phones started ringing. We heard them from the ridge. Frantic voices echoing across manicured lawns. By noon, Karen's SUV was gone. By evening, I got another call. Evan Sharp, lawyer. Mr. Talbot, the board would like to offer a resolution meeting. No attorneys present, just you, them, and a mediator. Why the change of heart? As your materials caused confusion. Truth tends to do that. Please consider the offer. This could end now, quietly. I agreed. Not because I trusted them, because I wanted to see their faces. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday. That night, someone fired a shot through my window. Didn't hit me. Didn't need to. Message received. I didn't duck when the glass shattered. I just stood there, staring at the jagged hole where the window used to be, my chest still rising and falling, like I was waiting to feel something. Fear, rage, maybe even relief. But all I felt was tired. I swept the floor in silence, gathered the shards in a coffee tin. Then I sat down with the shotgun across my lap and waited for the sun to come up. Sydney arrived mid-morning. She took one look at the window and turned pale. You all right? It wasn't close enough, just loud. She set down her bag, pulled out a small digital recorder. We'll need to log this in case they try to spin it later. I'm not here to build a case, Sid. I'm here to finish something. She looked at me hard, then nodded. Thursday came faster than I thought it would. The meeting was held at the community center near the HOA pool. A pristine building with fake stone columns and a smell like disinfectant and denial. I arrived early. Not out of politeness, but because I wanted to see who flinched first. They made me sit at a folding table in the middle of the room. 3 board members on one side, Karen, back from whatever hole she'd vanished into, Evan the lawyer, and a man I'd never met. Tall, gray suit, dead eyes. The mediator. Sydney sat behind me, silent, notepad on her lap. Karen started, Mr. Talbot, we understand there have been tensions. You mean the gate? The trespassing? The vandalism? The dead animals? The bullet? She glanced at the mediator. We're hoping to de-escalate. I didn't answer. Just waited. Evan leaned forward. We're prepared to offer a restoration of limited access rights to your cabin, contingent on the removal of your materials and cessation of any future public claims. I smiled. Not kindly. Let me get this straight. You blocked my access, trespassed on my land, tried to erase me. And now that your house of cards is swaying, you want to pretend none of it happened? Outside, this isn't personal, Karen said. Her voice cracked on the word. I leaned forward. It was never personal. That's the problem. I was just an inconvenience, a check mark, a loose end to be trimmed. The mediator cleared his throat. Mr. Talbot, this is an opportunity to resolve the matter amicably. I have a counteroffer. They all looked up. You remove the gate, acknowledge the original easement publicly, and resign, all 3 of you. In writing, today. Evan chuckled. That's not a negotiation. That's a demand. No, I said. That's mercy. The room went still. Karen's face drained of color. The man in the suit shifted for the first time. Evan tapped his pen against his folder. You don't have the leverage you think you do, he said. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I've already delivered the next round of documents to 3 local title companies and the state land registry. Maybe they're waking up right now to discover a mess with your names on it. Maybe this isn't a negotiation at all. Maybe it's just me giving you a final chance to get out before it all collapses. I stood. You've got until sunset. After that, I go quiet. And when I go quiet, people start making noise. The kind that costs money. Jobs, reputations. I walked out, didn't wait for a reply. Sydney followed me to the truck. We drove in silence back to the ridge. Once there, I checked the trail, reset the tripwires. No signs of fresh footprints. At dusk, I stood on the cabin porch and watched the sun bleed down behind the hills. 1 hour passed, then 2. No calls, no visitors, then headlights in the trees, a single car. Evan Sharp stepped out holding a folder. He walked slow, like every step hurt. We'll do it, he said. All of it. Resignations, easement recognition, removal of the gate. He handed me the folder. Inside, signed documents. Notarized. I didn't smile. Just nodded. Why now? He looked off at the trees. Because you made us afraid. Not of you. Of what else might come. You don't fight like a man with nothing to lose. You fight like someone who already lost everything and doesn't mind losing more. He turned and walked away. Sydney came out of the cabin, eyes wide. Is it over? I looked at the folder, then at the gate still standing in the distance. No, I said, but it's starting to end. That night, I slept for 4 hours straight, which was more than I'd managed in weeks. The morning after the meeting, I took down the tripwires. Not because the threat was gone, but because I finally believed I might be able to sleep without a hammer cocked beside my bed. I left the cans hanging, though, let them rattle in the wind like bones in warning. Sydney showed up with breakfast, eggs and toast wrapped in foil, still warm. We ate on the porch in silence, like survivors who didn't know if the fire was really out yet. They'll fight back, she said eventually. Not the same way, slower, smarter, through paperwork, rumors, maybe some leverage we haven't seen yet. I know. Then why do you look calm? I stared out at the trees. Morning light slipping through the branches. Because they blinked first. You can't unblink. That afternoon, workers in orange vests arrived. Neutral contractors, not HOA hires. They started dismantling the steel gate under quiet supervision. No crowds, no press. Just 3 men with tools and a job. When the gate fell with a hollow clang, I felt something in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Closure, maybe, or just the absence of resistance. Later, Sydney and I hiked the back trail again. Halfway through, we found new markers staked into the dirt. Bright pink flags. Freshly driven. HOA hadn't given up. They'd just shifted terrain. Sydney took photos, logged coordinates. This is phase 2, she muttered. They're mapping out new angles. Probably prepping for rezoning applications or some loophole to redraw property lines. Let them try. We're watching now. That night, I opened the steel box I'd buried near the fire pit. Pulled out the letter I'd written weeks ago. I unfolded it, reread every word, then burned it page by page. I wouldn't need it anymore. The next few days passed in uneasy quiet. Word spread about the HOA board resignations. Karen vanished again. Her house went up for sale overnight. Rumor said she moved to Arizona to start fresh. Funny how bullies always run when no one flinches. Jerry stopped by 2 days later. No warning, Just walked up the trail with a grocery bag in one hand and shame in the other. Brought you something, he said. I didn't invite him in. Just nodded and took the bag. Hey, you were right, he said. We knew it was wrong. Most of us. But people get tired, Will. Tired of fighting. Tired's not an excuse. Tired's a choice. He looked down. I'm sorry. I know. He left without asking for forgiveness, and I didn't offer it. Some debts don't get cleared. They just get carried quieter. The last part of the cabin I fixed was the window. New glass, new frame, stronger hinges. I thought about leaving the hole. Let it remind me. But no. Some wounds need healing, not framing. On the 6th night after the deal, Sydney came by with a bottle of whiskey and 2 metal cups. 2 endings, she said. To starts, I replied. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. But just before she left, standing at the edge of the porch, she said, I've got a job offer. East Coast. Government Watchdog Group. So, sounds dangerous. She smiled. Perfect. I nodded. You should go. You've done your part here. She stepped off the porch. Paused. So did you. But I think you're not quite done yet. She was right. The land was quiet again, but not still. Something was always shifting beneath the surface. Roots, intentions, regrets. But I'd learned how to listen, and they knew it now. You can fence off a road. You can file papers and send threats and bury the truth beneath signatures and bylaws. But you can't erase a man who refuses to disappear. That was the mistake they made, and I wasn't going anywhere. The wind changed the morning after Sydney left, not metaphorically. Literally. It shifted east off the ridge, cold and dry. Carried the smell of pine and something older. The kind of wind that wakes you before dawn and makes you feel like something's coming, even if you don't know what. I went down to the creek to check the traps. Not the wire ones, those were gone, but the ones that mattered. Shifts in soil, broken twigs, footprints where there shouldn't be any. And that's where I saw it. A boot print, new, deep, pressed into the mud near the back trail, just past the ridge. Heavy tread, not mine. Someone had come back. I didn't panic. I didn't call anyone. I just stood there for a long time, listening to the forest breathe. Then I followed the print. It didn't lead to the cabin. It curved along the base of the hill, toward the old logging path, long since overgrown. And then it disappeared, vanished, just like that. Later that afternoon, a letter arrived. No stamp, just an envelope tucked under a rock at the cabin's front steps. Inside, a single page, typed, no name. Congratulations, you won a round. But land doesn't stay quiet. It gets bought, sold, repurposed. Nothing's over? Not really. I read it once, then again, then burned it in the fire pit without blinking. They thought they were telling me something new. The next week, I drove into town for the first time with the windows down. People looked. Some nodded. Some didn't. Jerry raised 2 fingers from his porch swing. The waitress at the diner brought me coffee without asking. No smiles, no chat, just hot and black, and placed steady in front of me. Sometimes peace is just the absence of fear. When I got home, I dug up the back half of the fire pit. Laid fresh stone, not for protection, for comfort. I wasn't preparing for war anymore. I was reclaiming the quiet. A month passed. Then 2. I fixed the roof, repainted the siding, grew tomatoes again. Nobody came. Until one afternoon in late fall, I found a young man standing near the property line. Early 20s. Backpack, clipboard, khakis too clean for the woods. You the owner here? He asked. Who's asking? Survey team, State Infrastructure Initiative. They're reviewing viable routes for expansion of fiber lines. I just looked at him. I'm not laying anything. He added quickly. Just assessing. Start your assessment somewhere else. He raised a hand, backed away. Didn't argue. I watched him vanish down the ridge and thought, here it is again. The slow creep. Not with threats or fences. With language, progress, utility corridors, easements with polite names and sharp edges. I wasn't surprised. I was ready. That night, I pulled out a new map, drew new lines, checked coordinates, logged fresh notes. They'd come again. Maybe not this year, maybe not next, but they'd come, and I'd be here, not waiting, watching, because the truth is, I never wanted a war, never wanted a fight. All I wanted was quiet, space, a little land to hold that wasn't under someone's thumb. They tried to take that from me, and I showed them what happens when you try to erase a man who's already been broken once. He doesn't run. He doesn't beg. He builds stronger, quieter, deeper. And when they come again, and they will, I'll meet them the same way I did before, not with rage, with roots, the kind they'll never see until it's too late, the kind that hold forever.